Okay, firstly, Aisha, thank you for chairing this important meeting. And thank you to you all for turning up in a busy conference agenda to discuss an issue that is very dear to me and one that I think is very important. And I think the first thing I want to say is, if you had taken a bet on whether I'd be deputy leader speaking at this event on Friday night, you'd have made a lot of money. And I really hope some of you did. And the person you've got to thank if you did is John Landsman. So Aisha, I'm sorry that I've broken the rule that I mentioned John Landsman, but just to let you know, I'm going to get John Landsman gags in every Fringe meeting all week, right? Because that guy, I thought I was going to have a quiet week at this conference, that we'd have I'd do my speech on Tuesday, do a few Fringe events like this, and I got off that train and there were 30 cameras waiting for me, and they didn't want to talk about gambling, which is what I want to talk about today. And really just to remind those of you that have been sort of following this debate that we've been incrementally making policy announcements for some months now. And some of the priorities, we're setting some of the priorities that we want to address when we're in government. Like a culture of limits for online gambling, or an end to credit card gambling, or a new gambling ombudsman that would help customers get their money back where appropriate. And we've consistently made the case for a new gambling act. And I think that's important because as we've had this debate in government, we realise, and Aisha said it from the outset, that 2005 Act is an analogue act that hasn't accounted for the huge changes the industry is seeing in the digital age. And so we think that we need to update that legislation in government, and one of the areas I just want to focus on today, we think that we need new legislation to look at the issue of video games and loot boxes within video games. We followed with increasing concern the research and the media coverage of gambling type products in games and the increasing blurring of the lines between gambling and gaming. And we know that the more money gamers spend on loot boxes, the more severe their problem gambling is. And some experts have argued to us that this link goes beyond loot boxes too. It's to a whole range of borderline products, esports betting, token wagering, social casino play, to name a few. And they talk of a psychological kinship between loot boxes and gambling. And there's sort of key similarities: near misses, the illusion of control, and losses disguised as wins. And as those human stories are revealed to us, they're also familiar. We've seen those stories of children spending hundreds of pounds on sort of loot boxes within games. And don't get me wrong, by the way, I use loot boxes in video games, and so I've sort of seen them, how they operate myself. But at the moment, the situation is that the regulator cannot intervene with many of these products because of the loophole in the current Gambling Act. While they were bought with real money, they cannot be cashed out, and they do not meet the definition of money or money's worth. And so we've got that impasse, and we also know that self-regulation in this particular space is not working. So that's why we launched a consultation on loot boxes earlier in the year, to hear about people's ideas and experiences. And in response to our consultation, gamers have urged me to consider arguing that the odds of these items should be more transparent. They want to know what the likelihood is of getting the upgraded weapon or the extra defensive wall is going to be. And some have urged weekly or monthly limits on how much can be spent on those kind of games. And they all agree that money's worth loopholes needs to be addressed when cashing in is clearly important as important as cashing out. And their views were backed up by the findings of the survey for Gamban, which I know Matt will be telling us about later in his contribution. I was really pleased to see the outcome of the DCMS Select Committee inquiry, In particular, their call that there's a need for more money to be put into research and for the definition of money's worth to be reassessed. But I think we should go further than the Select Committee. Loot boxes might be the focus of attention today, but tomorrow it will be something else. By definition, the games industry is at the cutting edge of innovation. The gambling industry is too. And I don't think it serves us to rely solely on making little tweaks to the existing Act. We need a wholesale redefinition of gambling in the digital age. We need to know what it is so that we're equipped to legislate and regulate tomorrow. Because as I said, it's not just loot boxes. I think those changing challenges of the digital world are everywhere. Just look at gambling advertising, or the online gambling operators licensed in the UK but based abroad but don't pay their share of UK taxes. That's why I'm saying we need a new gambling act fit for the digital age, not keep making amendments to a 20-year-old piece of analogue legislation. So that's our starting point, and I'm incredibly grateful for the other people on this panel who have really helped with our technical thinking about how we might get to that new piece of legislation when we're in government. And I'm grateful for you for taking an interest in this important part of social policy.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tom Watson.